It is the night of all nights, Wednesday night. That means Dynasty Nerds on the Better Sports Network. Our second to last show here, the penultimate show of Dynasty Nerds on Better Sports Network. Here tonight, we just finished up with week 12. Fingers crossed, it wasn't a terrible injury week until we got to after the week was over. Now we're starting to hear about some guys out, specifically Jonathan Taylor. Brutal injury for those ascending toward the playoffs. So tough break there. We've got an awesome show planned. We're gonna play some games tonight. I like playing games. We do games often on the Dynasty Nerd show. We don't do them as often here on the Dynasty Nerd show on Better Sports Network. We don't do that as often. So, hit the like, baby. Hit that like. Yeah, we don't do games nearly as often on the Better Sports Network show. And I was like, you know what, tonight feels like a good night for some games. Tonight feels like one of those nights we're just gonna kick back, relax. You guys are welcome to play in these games as well. You're welcome to join us. If you're a fan of the Dynasty Nerds podcast, you're probably familiar with the Isaiah Likely-O-meter. We will be doing that one tonight, talking about things that we think are going to happen in the NFL world and in the fantasy landscape. How likely are they to happen, though? From 1 to 10. So that's how that's going to go. Then we'll get to all of your trade questions and things like that, kind of in that middle dead period there. We'll get to all of those trade questions. And then join us a tiny bit later tonight because he's a big shot. Dennis Bennett will be on Sirius XM some tonight. Once he's done with that, he'll join us right around 10:30 Eastern time. He'll be joining, and we'll be talking with him as well. So excited to talk to Tyler, play this game tonight. I want you guys to give your answers as well. Not just Tyler, but I want you guys to give your answers as well on how likely you think whatever given statement I make is to happen. So we will get right into it. Tyler, you ready, my man?
I am ready and I am here, man.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, no.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Cool. I think we're good now.
Yeah, no, I'm ready and I'm ready to go, man.
Okay, all right. So let me explain how this kind of works. I briefly mentioned it to you, but the way we play the Isaiah Likely-O-meter is I'll give you a statement. So the sky is blue. You can tell me how likely that is to be true on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being like, there's no way that that's going to happen. Absolutely not. The sky will not be blue no matter what. Or 10, for sure, write it down. Without a doubt, it's happening. Now, we have certain caveats in this game that we like to add in. All right. So running backs, aka halfbacks, you can use half points if you wish. All right. Okay. So if you want to give an 8.5, you're allowed to. Quarterbacks, you can give quarter points. So if you wanna go, 8.25, you can do that. All right. Wide receiver, wide open. Whatever decimal point pleases your heart, you can use that. But tight ends, we keep it tight. So you got to use only whole numbers.
Whole number. Okay. Cool.
Got it?
Sounds pretty cool. Got it.
All right. That's how it works around here. Okay. So let's go with the very first one. And Mr. Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams, he came back off injury. He looks fantastic. But the question is, how likely is he to be a running back 1 in 2024? So next year, is he a guy that we should be targeting? Is he not a guy that we should be targeting? So how likely is Kyren Williams to be a running back 1 for fantasy football in 2024? What's your thoughts?
For that one, I'm gonna say 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah, and I say that because the Rams haven't really had like a number 1 solidified guy, at least that I can remember, since Todd Gurley, which was Super Bowl 52, 53, like around that time.
Yeah.
Like 2017, 2018. It's been a mix of a backfield. They thought they had Akers. He's just not good. Gurley couldn't stay healthy after a couple years. I'm gonna say a 4. They're definitely more of a passing offense. And why wouldn't you be when you got guys like Cooper Kupp, you have Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 4 is a pretty fair place to put that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go a tiny bit higher. I'm gonna go 5.5. I'm gonna go 5.5. I think it's more likely than not. I really liked him as a rookie coming out, and then he ran the 40 at the combine, and his stock plummeted. If you don't remember, he ran like a 4.77 or something like that. Like, it was not good. And everybody freaked out, and he dropped in the draft. He dropped in fantasy leagues. He like everything. In his rookie campaign, he was okay. Like he dealt with some injuries when he was in there. He was fine. But he kind of came out of nowhere this year because people thought, all right, they're going to give the job back to Cam Akers. And no, first week right out the gate, Kyren Williams went nuclear. And other than the injuries that he's dealt with, that's really the only thing that slowed him down. So I think that this team is probably heading a bit more toward a rebuild. And traditionally in a rebuild, you're not drafting running backs. You're drafting offensive linemen. You're drafting quarterbacks. You're drafting like cornerstone pieces that you're going to need for that rebuild. Running back's usually one of the last things that they worry about. So I think he's still going to be there a while. I think he's good enough, obviously, from what we've seen this year. So I'm going to put it at a 5.5, I think.
That's fair. And one other thing that I can say, can we please stop putting a lot of emphasis on the 40-yard dash?
Oh my gosh.
I think that is maybe one of the most overrated drills in the NFL Combine. It's so dumb because I care more about someone's 3-cone speed than I do about the 40-yard dash. Anyone can run in a straight line.
Yeah.
And you can train for that specifically. I don't care about that. You could be the fastest dude, but if your footwork is awful, I'm not picking you. I'm sorry. Like I hate that there's so much emphasis on the 40-yard dash. It's so stupid.
I'm 100% with you. And actually, I was talking to Scott Barrett the other day, and he actually wrote an article on how over the past decade, the success in the 40-yard dash actually has an inverse correlation to fantasy points. So it's actually almost hurting guys that are really fast. Like they score less points than guys that are not fast, which is hilarious. And obviously, being fast doesn't hurt you on the football field. It's a good trait. But what happens often is these guys are really fast. They've relied on their speed all throughout their life. They get to the NFL and, you need to be more than fast at the NFL level to be able to succeed.
Yeah. And then here's the thing with that. When you're just outrunning dudes in high school and college, you don't do anything related to footwork because you're just outrunning guys. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Once you get to the NFL, that's the only thing that matters is your footwork.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm 100% with you. All right. Just for reference, this guy currently is quarterback 8 on the season. That's Mr. Patrick Mahomes. Normally he sits at the tippy top or at least inside of the top 3. Right now he's averaging 19.8 points per game, while the top guys, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, are averaging 24 and 25 a game. So how likely is Patrick Mahomes to finish the season strong and get back inside the top 3? For reference, right now, quarterback 3 in points is Dak Prescott at 21.1. So he's about 1.3 points away.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, who's number 1 and 2?
Josh Allen's number 1 at 25 points. Jalen Hurts is number 2 at 24.4. And then Dak Prescott at 21.1. Okay. There are some guys in between him, obviously, since he's at 8 as well. So we got like CJ Stroud and Justin Herbert in between.
I'm going to say to get into the top 3 by the season's end, and we could use quarters.
What helps is Sam Howell and Lamar Jackson are currently both ahead of him, but they're averaging less points per game. They just haven't had their bye. And remember, it's quarterbacks. So you can use quarter points if you wish.
Yeah, and Lamar Jackson has his bye this week. I think Sam Howell might be the week after.
Okay.
Let me think. I'm going to say 6.25.
Okay.
And I say that because, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is good. He can run. He could do it all. His receivers cannot catch. They are so bad. So that's the, I mean, let's be honest. That's the reason why he's number 8 is because no one can catch a ball. Even Travis Kelce is struggling to catch a little bit, which is, that's fine. I mean, he's older. We're expecting a decline at some point. So that's reasonable. But I mean, Watson, Moore, Tony, these dudes cannot catch a ball to save their life. So
Bad.
I'm going to say 6.5 because personally, I believe by himself he can do it. I don't necessarily think that his receivers are going to help him get there.
Yeah. No, it's a fair assessment. I'm going to go a flat 5. Just a flat 5. And it's for a lot of the same reasons. I just don't know if there's enough weeks, plus he just doesn't have that guy. You know, he does in Travis Kelce, but he doesn't have that guy in the receiving game that can take the top off the defense and also catch it. He has guys that can take the top off the defense like MVS. Dude just can't catch it. So that's the problem. So I'm going to go with the flat 5. I think it's real murky water right now if he's able to get there or not.
I mean, let's be honest. His running backs have been better catchers than the wide receivers. And he can't be throwing 40 yards downfield to the running back. It's just not how that works.
Yeah, typically that doesn't work out too well. It's a bummer because Patrick Mahomes is, I mean, obviously he's a stud. He's the best quarterback in football. But there's only so much you can do by yourself. You can't catch it as well. Yeah. Office Depot said 40%. So I'm going to translate that to a 4 on the Isaiah Likely-o-meter. I think that would be a 4, I'm guessing. So yeah, it's going to be tough for him. It's going to be tough for him. All right. We're going to stay on the quarterback position. Okay. Isaiah Likely-o-meter, that Jalen Hurts wins the MVP this season. You want me to get the MVP odds for you?
Yeah, if you could, because I'm running through my head. And you know what? To be perfectly honest, this year I feel has been kind of like a lackluster year with MVP talk a little bit. Like no one's really broken out. And it's really kind of sad because at this point, it's definitely a quarterback's award because no one's even really talking about Christian McCaffrey for MVP, which he probably should be.
He probably should. Tyreek Hill's probably worth being in the conversation too.
Tyreek Hill's up there too. It's like we're not. I hate that it's just a quarterback's award because we just don't talk about these dudes.
So for right now, this is BetMGM. Their odds are Jalen Hurts does have the best odds at the moment at plus 140. Then we've got Mahomes at plus 350, Lamar Jackson at plus 500, and then Tua and Prescott both at plus 800.
Tua Prescott plus 800. Okay, I need to double check one thing before I answer. Because I'm very curious to see what the Eagles' schedule is the next couple of weeks. I think it's one of the more brutal ones.
Yeah, they have San Francisco.
San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle, the Giants, Arizona, and the Giants.
So it's tough the next couple of weeks, and then the last like 3 weeks are pretty easy.
I'm gonna give it a flat 8. Okay. Just because I think the tush push helps a lot because it makes if you look at the common NFL fan, they're like, oh, he scored all these touchdowns. He must be amazing. Well, no, they're just 1 yard pushes. Right. But the people who vote for this stuff, they like high numbers, like high touchdowns and stuff like that. So I don't, because of the reasons we mentioned with the Mahomes and his receivers, I don't think he gets there. Tua is not there just yet. I don't know. I don't think Josh Allen gets there either. I think it has to
Prescott
be Prescott
and Lamar are the other ones that are in contention right now.
Prescott. Now, okay, if Prescott beats Jalen on Sunday Night Football, then that has a huge potential to flip.
That could flip it.
The problem is I don't see Prescott beating Jalen on Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. I don't see the Cowboys actually pulling that off. That's probably the only thing that would make it flip. I'm going to say I'm gonna say Jalen gets it done. So what did I say, an 8? Yeah, I'll stick
8.
with 8.
Yeah. I was pretty close to that as well. Lamar is interesting because how well he has the Ravens playing, especially, even due to all those injuries. So he's the one that scares me the most, actually. But I'm still going to go with Jalen. I'm not quite as confident as you. I'm going to go with 7.25 on that, and I'll take my quarter point. He's what really helped was this past week because the first half of that game, it it was doo-doo butter. Like, it was
Yeah.
not good. He had, like, 50 yards passing at half. I think he had 1 touchdown, but it was a tush push one. Like, and they were losing to the Bills in a nasty weather game. Then what does he do in the second half? Puts up 4 tutties in the second half and overtime, ends up throwing over 200 yards, and he just looked unflappable. Like, every time he touched the ball, it was like, Jalen Hurts is going to figure out a way. He's going to figure out a way. And he did. Every time he figured out a way to make the play, whether that was running, whether that was throwing. And that was one of those games for me, especially against a team that's supposed to be good, like Buffalo, where it's, a lot of eyes on it and it's a bigger deal. Like, that was one of those games where it's like, this is a signature win. Like, this is, you bring your team back when you weren't playing your best football, and then you just ball out. Like, it's a signature win. And so that really kind of, I think, helped push him from kind of a pack of people out in front of everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. The signature win is huge. It's almost like a college football type thing. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, keeping that in mind as far as the schedule and everything goes. So while you were talking, I looked up the Ravens schedule. I was
Okay.
curious who Lamar Jackson has left. So they're on a bye this week. Then they have the Rams, which is they should win that.
Right.
And then the last 4 games they have, if the Ravens win out, maybe Lamar has a shot. The last 4 games at Jacksonville, at San Francisco, at home versus Miami, at home versus Pittsburgh.
Ooh, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's a pretty brutal schedule, especially the Jacksonville and the San Francisco one. Those are back-to-back primetime games too. So let's say he walks into Jacksonville on Sunday Night Football, beats the Jaguars, which could happen. But then if he follows that up on Monday Night Football, walking into San Francisco and beating the Niners on their home turf, okay, he has an argument. I will give him a legitimate argument. So I'm still going to say Jalen for now, but Mahomes. I mean, not Mahomes. Lamar has an argument right there.
There's a path. There's definitely
There is a path. There's very much a path. Hey, you know what? None of us thought he was going to win the Heisman, and he found that path. So maybe he can do it again.
That's true. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. All right, let's move over to wide receiver. How likely is it on the Isaiah Likely-o-meter is the best receiver in this class?
Ooh,
So
that's a tough one.
Just for clarification, we've got guys like Puka, Jordan Addison, JSN, Zay Flowers. So there have been a lot of pretty solid receivers in this class. Not Quentin Johnston, but
I was wondering if his name was going to get brought up.
it was not.
This is an actually tough one because you did mention there are some solid wide receivers. Jordan Addison's really, really good.
Yeah.
To the point where if Justin Jefferson, for whatever reason, leaves, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
I think Addison could be a number 1. Flowers is very quickly turning into Lamar's favorite option. So there's that. JSN is off to the slow start, but I think once Tyler Lockett leaves, which will probably be next offseason,
Yeah.
I think he has a chance to go off. Puka is there, especially if Kupp gets hurt, retires, leaves, whatever. He's automatically number 1. This is honestly a really tough one.
That group, we talked about it on the Dynasty Nerds podcast last night. Like, trying to separate out that group of 5 guys is really, really difficult. Like, ranking them, you could put them in almost any order and it would make sense.
I'm going to say the best in this class. I'm going to say a 5. He's
Okay.
pretty on par with all the other names I mentioned, not Quentin
Sure.
Johnston. But he has a chance to be better. And the only reason I'm saying this, it really comes down to one caveat: how long he stays in Houston. Because I
Sure.
remember during the draft, the only reasons the Texans drafted him, well, I guess there's two. Number one, he went to U of H, so he's right there in their backyard.
That helps.
And number two, Stroud asked for this dude personally.
Yeah.
He asked the Texans, hey, draft this dude. I like him. I can make this work. They, this might be a little bit of a hot take. They could be the next Mahomes Hill, honestly.
They could.
When Tyreek was there in Kansas City, that could be the next big thing. And Tank Dell just lays out after everything.
Yeah.
Dude is amazing. I'm going to say a 5 because right now he's even. It depends on a couple things, but for right now, I'll just say 5.
Yeah. No, it's pretty darn close to where I was going to go. I was going to go with like some random number because it's wide receiver and it's wide open. So I like to take advantage of that. So like 4.62 or something like that. So pretty close to even as well. I have a hard time breaking up this group. All of these guys, like you could see a path to them being a really good NFL wide receiver. And a lot of them have already shown quite a bit just in their rookie campaigns. So from a class of a bunch of undersized guys, and we're already looking ahead to 2024, and all these guys that are 6'2" and 6'3", and all these 5'8" guys, 5'9" guys, like they're balling out. They're balling out. Even we didn't even mention Josh Downs, and it's partly because he's been injured. But when he was healthy, he was playing great for the Colts. Jaden Reed, sneakily,
Yeah, he's been really good
since week 7, wide receiver 13 in fantasy football. Like Jaden Reed's been really good lately. So and most of these guys are not big. They're 5'8" to 5'11", but got good feet, got good moves, making things happen. So it is a really, really interesting wide receiver class for sure.
I was just going to say that because you mentioned good feet. I was going to be like, what's the one thing all these guys have in common? They have great feet work. And what was the one drawback that people had on Quentin Johnston? His feet work's it's a little meh.
Yeah.
And who's balling and who's not?
Yeah. Well, and you add that into guys that don't have good ball skills. Like, yes, is he big? Yes, is he athletic? Like, yes. But if you don't have good ball skills, you don't have the body control, you don't have all these things. You look at all of the best wide receivers in the NFL, with the exception of one guy. The only exception to this rule that I've seen in the past 10, 15 years is DK Metcalf. He's the only one where he doesn't have amazing ball skills, but he's just a freak of nature. He is. He's just a total freak of nature. But outside of that, you look at the Cooper Kupps, you look at the Devontae Adams, you look at the Justin Jefferson, and like all of these guys, great ball skills, great feet, and they separate and get open.
Yeah, this is going to be another little bit of a hot take, but I look at Tank Dell and I see glimpses of early years Marvin Harrison. Just the way this dude had amazing body control, would die for everything, wasn't afraid to run across the middle, wasn't afraid to get dirty.
Yeah.
Tank Dell's not afraid to do any of it.
He's not.
And especially in a league that is probably known more for defense than offense, in a conference, I'm sorry. That dude's a baller, man. He's just so good.
Yeah. He's a fun kid to watch. And I love that a guy that small is nicknamed Tank. Like, it's incredible. Ben asks, how's the 2025 and 2026 class shaping up? And yeah, this is something that's always good to do, always good to look ahead. So 2025 is going to be interesting because there's some guys that are eligible to be drafted this year that I think are going to be waiting an additional year, specifically looking at the quarterback position. Shador Sanders, I think, is going to end up being in the 25 class. Quinn Ewers, I think, is going to end up being in the 25 class. So I think that there's going to be some good, experienced quarterbacks at the top there. There are some there's a wide receiver, Luther Burden, in the 25 class that looks amazing. Nicholas Singleton's a decent running back out of Penn State. So I would say right now, overall, the 24 class looks better than 25, but 25 doesn't look too bad. 26, I haven't seen a lot of guys from the 26 class do much in college football this year. So they're kind of let's wait and see. But normally we have a few more true freshmen that kind of burst onto the scene. We haven't had as much of that this year as we have in past years. So we'll have to kind of wait and see on the 26 class. All right. Heavy T, you ready?
Let's go.
Let's keep it going. All right. Isaiah Likely-O-meter. Sorry. Do you ever get like notifications pop up and then you like
all the time
have a hard time that's what just happened to me. All right. Isaiah Likely-O-meter, that Travis Kelce is the tight end 1 next year. He's been the tight end 1 before this year. Now we'll see. Right now, he points per game is tight end 1. But overall, since he missed that game, he's actually slightly behind TJ Hockenson overall. But he's been tight end 1 6 of the past 7 years. We'll see what happens this year. But he is getting older. You have to wonder when things are going to start to slow down for him a little bit. Likelihood that he's the tight end 1 overall again next year.
Tight ends, you have to keep it tight, so round numbers.
Yep, whole numbers here.
I'm going to say 2, honestly.
Oh, okay.
I really like Hockenson, and the Vikings are using him really well. Sam Laporta is cooled off a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, he's going to be a mainstay there in Detroit. He's going to be the Hockenson that was there, and for whatever reason they didn't know how to use, but now apparently they do. And then on top of that, Kincaid started off a little slow because Dawson Knox was there. It's really just picked it up. Yeah. I mean, those are 3 guys right off the top of my head.
And Andrews will be back too. He's the only one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Mark Andrews.
He's the only one that, when I say 6 of the 7 years, Andrews was the one guy that did dethrone him one of those years.
Yeah. And let's say it's a little bit personal, but let's say hypothetically, Arthur Smith is gone.
Okay.
And the next coach is like, hey, I have Kyle Pitts right here. I should probably use him. If he actually gets used correctly, are you telling me that dude is in at least top 5?
Easily.
I mean, he probably is. So I think we finally hit the point where for Kelce, there's just too many guys. And like I said, he's older, so he has to start declining at some time. Everybody does. So we've seen it a little bit this year. Probably steadily goes a little bit more next year. I don't think he's tight end 1. He probably finishes top 5 again, but I don't think he's 1.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm gonna say I'm a little more confident just until I can see consistently people be better than him, because I just haven't seen it on a consistent level. And like, even though like we're like, yeah, he hasn't been as good lately. Past 2 weeks, 15.4 and 15.5 points. So he's still like putting up numbers even when he's like not that good. But that being said, I'm gonna give him a 5. I think it's kind of right in the middle there. He just has a knack of how to get open. He has a knack for it. And that's all you really need at tight end. You don't have to be a freakish athlete. You just have to get the quarterback to look your way. It is all about the volume, and Travis Kelce gets it. He does. So at the end of the day, he's still that guy until he proves to me that he's not that guy. So I'm going to go with a 5, but I guess I'm not like saying it confidently like it sounds like, because I'm only giving him a 5, but here it is what it is. All right, here we go. Wide receiver. So it's wide open here. Michael Pittman Jr. This year, he is currently wide receiver 13 on the season. Likelihood that next year he is a top 10 wide receiver. Now, we should be getting Anthony Richardson back. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for his value. He played well with Richardson for what it's worth in the games where Richardson was around those first 3 weeks. 23.7, 13.6, and 16.7. And in that last one where he left, 4.5. So that was a weird week where he left and Minshew came in and whatnot.
Now, top 10, correct?
Top 10. Yep. So he's at 13 this year. And I mean, he could even sneak into the top 10 this year. We'd have to wait and see. But what's the likelihood that he gets there next year?
I'm going to go with what his number is. I'm going to say 7.11. We'll just go with 7.11. I mean, if he's 13 there with Gardner Minshew, he can only be better, and he was good with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
My only worry is Jim Irsay. That is my only worry.
I mean, he is a free agent, so there's a chance that he's not even on this team.
That's what I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, hey, who were we talking about earlier who doesn't have any receivers that can catch? Now, if this dude hypothetically gets signed by Kansas City, he's probably top 5. Yeah. Honestly, like he's top 10 easily. He's probably 5. But I mean, like I said, the fact that he's putting up these numbers with Minshew, even if he stays in Indianapolis, I'd say 7.11. I think that's pretty fair. He'd have to go to, I'm trying to think of like an awful team right now. He'd have to go to someone like the Giants, maybe.
Yeah.
Where he is in a top 10. No, I think it's going to happen.
I think it is too. For what it's worth, he has been really good with Minshew. I mean, he's been really good all year, but since week 6, 19.9, 16.3, 18, 14.4, 16.4, and 20.7. So he's been pretty consistently good with Minshew. But imagine if he got like a legit quarterback, like somebody that could consistently get him the football. We'll see. I'm gonna go a point lower, but I like your idea of sticking with the number there. So I'll go 6.11. I think it's more likely than not. I think he's trending that direction. I think he's a very good wide receiver. So I think he does get that direction. It's more about Anthony Richardson more so than Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think talent-wise, I think he's there. I just don't know. I just don't know. Hopefully, they're a match made in heaven, and it's the next AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. Like, hopefully, that's the case. But we'll see.
That would be incredible, honestly. If you get that, if you get anything close to what Manning Harrison did, or even if he ends up Manning Garcon, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah,
like almost everybody would take that.
Absolutely, Pierre Garcon, former Mount Union Purple Raider from Ohio. There.
Also, can't forget the other dude. If he turns into Manning Reggie Wayne, that works too.
Reggie Wayne.
Manning really had some really good receivers over there in Indianapolis.
It's always tough with guys like that. Is it like, were they a really good receiver, or did he make them a really good receiver?
Yeah, I think Reggie Wayne was good. Harrison was obviously amazing.
Yeah.
Even without Manning, he was still amazing. Reggie Wayne was good. Pierre Garcon was secretly really good because he was, once he left Indianapolis, he was still quietly consistent in Washington. Yeah. He was pretty good. So I think those just happened to be 3 perfect marriages right there.
Yeah, they were. They were for sure. Yeah, he had some other guys. Remember Anthony Gonzalez, little white boy from Ohio State.
Yeah, he had
he's like a senator now.
Not even it's funny when the ex-NFL dude gets into politics. I don't know why I always think that's funny.
Yeah, he's like a senator or something now. It's pretty funny. All right, let's do one more and then we'll go to break. And I think we're actually going to keep you on over break if you're okay with that, Tyler, because we're not going to be getting Dennis till 10:30. So we'll get a little more Tyler time in here tonight. I think that would be good.
I personally love it.
I personally like it. All right, let's head back over to your Atlanta Falcons.
Oh boy,
you ready for this?
Kind of, but okay.
You need a moment quickly to collect yourself and your thoughts.
Let's go.
All right, we've toyed around with this a lot this offseason, or I guess during the season, I should say, not offseason. During the season, we've toyed around with this. What is on the Isaiah Likely-o-meter? How likely is it that Kirk Cousins is the next quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons?
Oh man. This is a tough one because I really like it. Now, there's been a little bit of a wrinkle thrown into that because I personally would really like it.
Right.
But I've been seeing on Twitter, nothing official, but the fans are looking at Jaden Daniels over at LSU. And
I'm
they're
not
like,
sold on him. I'm not.
I'm not 100%. I need to see more.
Yeah.
But the fans are sold on it, and I'm like, I don't know. But a guy like Kirk Cousins, you know what you're getting. Consistency. Don't put him in too many primetime games because you can't win them all.
Right.
But I think Kirk Cousins is perfect for that offense. Arthur Blank has already came out and said that Arthur Smith is here next year.
Right.
So hypothetically, if that stays,
you know who I think your quarterback is going to be next year?
Oh God, who?
Who I think it's going to be Ryan Tannehill.
I would. Oh God,
that's who I think it's actually going.
That is not what I want.
I know. It's not sexy at all.
If that does happen, the fans will call for Smith's head before the season even starts.
Yeah,
like this dude will be on the hottest of hot seats if he has Ryan Tannehill. But going back to Kirk Cousins, I'm gonna say a 6.
Okay, so you think think there's some legs to it?
Yeah, I don't think Ritter's the dude. Heineke was cool, but just that offense doesn't really fit his style.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say a 6, and I'm trying to think who else could use a Kirk Cousins team or a Kirk Cousins type quarterback.
So here was because we were going through it on the Dynasty Nerds podcast, and the two most likely destinations, in my opinion, are him returning to Minnesota as their quarterback or Atlanta. But I think, and granted, there's always a random wild card team that could throw their name in, but the other team I would hate it as a Browns fan, but I think it makes a lot of sense. The Pittsburgh Steelers. He would be a really good fit for that team.
I don't like hearing that either.
I know. I hate it as a Browns fan, but you get Deontay Johnson, you get George Pickens, Najee and Warren in the backfield. They've done some things to improve that offensive line. They're another team where the defense, that's always been an issue for Kirk, is he's been on a lot of teams where the defense just has been not that great. This defense can ball out. So he doesn't have to put up 35 points a game. You get in the mid-20s, you're winning 95% of the time.
Okay. All right, so this one, because there's two teams I have in mind.
Okay.
One of them solely depends on where they're drafting.
Okay.
And that's New England. I think if New England gets number 1 or 2, they're getting Caleb Williams or Drake May. They're starting over at quarterback. They're getting one of those dudes.
I think they're finding a way to trade up even if they're not there. I think they're getting one of those guys.
I think the funniest thing to happen, and it could possibly happen, is they would be the team to get the number 1 pick and have Caleb Williams right there and then trade down to 9 and get a guard from Illinois or something like that. That would be the typical Patriots thing. So that's one spot I could see, but it really depends on where they land in the draft. The other spot, this one slightly concerns me because I think they have a shot. What if Seattle dumps Geno Smith and gives Kirk Cousins some money?
It's definitely a possibility.
They have a solid O-line. The running game's there. They have a great receiving core.
Yeah.
It could happen, man.
It could happen. I think they're committed enough to Geno where I think he's the starter next year no matter what. But I could see them going after a guy like Jaden Daniels or one of these young quarterbacks to develop them behind Geno Smith. That would be my guess. The only other place I could think of with Kirk Cousins that even sort of made sense, but I think this team is probably headed more for a rebuild more than like, hey, let's try to gut it out, is the Rams. Because remember, Sean McVay was his his offensive coordinator when he was in Washington.
Yeah.
So they have history together. He would fit that offense. He's younger than Matt Stafford, who I think they're ready to move on from. But it feels like they're headed to a rebuild, though, or at least they should.
Yeah, I agree. I think out of everyone we just mentioned, Atlanta makes the most sense.
I agree.
Pittsburgh makes sense in an ideal world.
Right.
But after watching quarterback and seeing what type of guy Kirk Cousins is, I don't know if he wants to deal with any potential wide receiver drama that goes on in Pittsburgh.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, George Pickens, he's his own dude. I haven't heard anything from him. But Deontay Johnson already looks like he's turning out to be not necessarily the same type of guy that Antonio Brown is, but maybe somewhere.
Well, see, I've heard more about Pickens
level
than Johnson.
Really?
Oh yeah, Pickens is the guy that keeps taking the Steelers off his social media stuff and taking them down, and like he apparently there was some sort of like words said between him and the coaching staff. Like, yeah, Pickens is a weird dude. He's also the one you've seen the picture of him on draft night, right?
Remind me, which one was
he's the one where he's like sitting there with his like gut out, like staring at the TV.
Oh God, that was him.
That was George Pickens.
I thought that was just a random fan.
I know.
That was George Pickens?
That was George Pickens. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh my God.
That was George Pickens on draft night. He's a weird dude. He's a weird dude.
All right. So I'll tell you what. We'll get Deontay Johnson. We'll put him in the Mike Wallace slot. We'll get George Pickens. And we'll put him in the Antonio Brown slot.
Okay. All right. So, sounds good.
I don't know if Kirk Cousins wants to deal with all that.
Probably doesn't.
Yeah.
Although Atlanta could have enough drama of its own with their head coach and things like that too next year. Because if they don't pony up, it'll get ugly.
True, but I think he can tolerate that over Drake London, who I don't think I've ever heard speak, like making some kind of scene.
That's fair. I don't think I've ever seen him interviewed. I don't think he does not seem like a guy that wants to be in the limelight, unlike most receivers.
Which that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I love less drama.
As a guy that loves Nick Chubb, I'm cool with that.
I think the most drama we've ever had as far as a wide receiver goes was Andre Rison, and I was good with that. So
yeah,
we'll keep it that way.
I've actually met Andre Rison.
Okay, how was he? Good guy, nice guy.
He was actually pretty nice in person.
Okay, all right.
At least that day.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how to judge someone whose nickname is Bad Moon, so
yeah, it is kind of weird. It is kind of weird.
No, I mean, he has to be some kind of person for his ex-girlfriend to burn down his house. So
you'll have that. But yeah, from everything I heard, he was nicer in person than I expected him to be.
All right. Well, hopefully, if I meet him, then I'll find out for myself.
Yeah. For my other job, we do autograph sessions with players. So there's a few guys that I haven't met like tons and tons, but there's some guys that I've met, and some of them are really cool. Some of them are total douchebags.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, but
we'll talk off air about who the douchebags are.
Yeah. I'm not gonna blast people on here. The one time one of our clips goes viral is gonna be me like, hey, have you ever? Yeah. All right, let's go to break real quick. When we come back, we'll finish up some of the Isaiah Likely-O-meter. We'll get to your trade questions, and then we'll get Dennis Bennett on here for Pick Your Poison. We'll be back on the Better Sports Network.
Of the NHL games, I had a conversation with Coop A Fiasco yesterday when we were producing High Stakes, and he was talking about playing video games. And I, since he covers fantasy football, I said, hey, are you going to be getting the new Madden this year? And he goes, yeah, I don't really play Madden. I play NHL. And that tells you, and it really does, that I do feel that the NHL game is better than Madden. I feel like Madden is overrated. The NHL game is so realistic. I don't know if you guys saw the trailer and all the new additions that they added to this game, but it really looks good. I tried finding all the games that I had of NHL, and I thought I had a lot. I only have 4 of them, And that's because I used to live with my my roommate and good friend who, got me into hockey, and we would play most of it in his house. So he has most of the games, but I do got 21.
There you go.
I got
Okay.
NHL 18. We got Connor McDavid up there.
There you go.
NHL 12, I think, was the start of the new consoles for me. But the big one,
Okay.
the holy grail of NHL games, NHL 94
Oh, there
for
you
the
go.
Sega
I mean,
Genesis
there.
right there. Look at that. Look at that beautiful cover. Look at it. Looks like a VHS tape. That's how good this game was.
No, let me stop you right there. So people, VHS tape, if you don't know, it's this like rectangular black plastic with the magnetic tape on the inside. Tape's this big. You put it in something called a VCR. For a little while, there was something called Beta that didn't last too long.
Look at this cartridge. I mean, they're not cartridges anymore. They're either discs or those little memory cards. But man, that thing is thick, right? And
you don't even need a cartridge or a disc anymore. You can buy the digital version.
Digital version, and then you got Ron Barr on the book. I mean, he used to be always in the intro telling you about the team and what was going to be happening in the game. So NHL 94 is by far my favorite game, sports game. I love that game.
All right, we are back. That that little commercial spot there did get me thinking. What's your go-to sports game?
I am so glad you asked because I was thinking about that during the commercial.
For you?
My first ever sports video game, and to this day is still my favorite. I am such a massive fan of the NFL Blitz franchise.
Fantastic franchise.
Yeah, by Midway. I don't have anywhere to put it now, but once I finally move into an apartment and have my own space, the first thing on my list that I need to get is the NFL Blitz arcade machine that Arcade 1-Up put out. I need that in my apartment. It has always been my go-to. Since I don't have that readily available at the moment, my go-to sports game, I really like MLB The Show. That's fun to play if you're playing by yourself.
Just
you're
Josh
playing online.
That too. The Diamond Dynasty mode is fun.
Diamond Dynasty is fun until you play other people online, and it is incredibly difficult. It's super frustrating. So, but that's really good. But I've slowly been getting into, it's not FIFA anymore, but EAFC.
Okay.
That one's pretty good. Especially if you're playing with friends, it's pretty fun. So yeah, but no, always and forever, NFL Blitz. I will have that arcade machine.
Just Josh says, does WWE 2K count? I think
Totally
that counts.
Totally counts.
Yeah.
I've played WWE 2K. The My GM mode is spectacular, where you're just making your own wrestling shows and everything. It's so much fun, dude. I spent hours on that thing.
See, I don't know that I've ever played any of the WWE games. See, I wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid. So like I never got a chance to like really invest in like Stone Cold Steve Austin and guys like that. Like I didn't get a chance to like really invest in it. So like it's one of those things that I could understand it from a nostalgia standpoint, but now that I never got a chance to like watch it as a kid, watching it as an adult, I'm like, I don't get it. Why do people like this?
Yeah,
because I didn't have that connection to it. Now, I feel like it's probably how people feel about like Space Jam. Like watching Space Jam as an adult, I could see how people would be like, "Why was this movie wasn't good? Why did you like?" I loved Space Jam. Loved Space Jam.
I love Space Jam. And as far as WWE goes, so also same thing with my parents. I wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid.
Okay.
But guys like Stone Cold and The Rock, they were so huge that even if you didn't watch it, you knew exactly who these dudes were.
For sure.
Exactly. So I got into it. Like I followed bits and pieces, but I consistently got into it maybe about 2015. So I'm already in my 20s.
Okay.
And I've been pretty much on board with it ever since.
Have you?
And like this past April, I went to WrestleMania at SoFi with my brother. And that was one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Really?
So much fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. So if you actually get invested into it, it's pretty good. Especially now that Vince McMahon is gone, but that's another story for another day.
Well, see, it's tricky for me because I only get so much. I'm a dad with 2 daughters. So I only get so much like sports watching time.
Yeah.
Part of it is my job. So, on Sunday, I do kind of like, hey, I'm watching, I need to watch football. I need to pay attention to what's going on, or I can't talk about it because I have no idea what happened. So I do kind of have to pay attention a little bit at least. But outside of that, I don't get a ton of like extra like sports time to watch. So if I'm watching something, it's probably going to be when they're around, and which means it's probably got to be like baseball or basketball or something like that. Like I can't be watching that with my 6-year-old and my 8-year-old daughters.
I mean, you can, but but if you're not invested into it, then there's no point because you're not going to know what's going on, and then they're going to look at you like, "Dad's what's happening?" And you're like, "I have no idea."
I have no idea. Let's watch the Mighty Ducks.
There you go.
I did have them watch the Little Giants the other day. That was a fun moment.
I've actually never seen that.
You've never seen the Little Giants?
I've never seen it. I kind of want to get around to it, but it's one of those things, kind of like you mentioned with Space Jam. I'm probably going to watch it and be like, this thing sucks.
Yeah, that's fair, because if you didn't see it as a kid, you don't have the nostalgia behind it. So, but your kid will probably like it.
Yeah, when I eventually have a kid.
Josh
probably.
says, my 3-year-old loves wrestling. Don't judge.
There you go. There you go, man. There you go.
My bad. My bad. I'll take it back. Take it back. All right. We got way off track here. Oh, I never even said my favorite video game.
That.
So I am a huge fan of MLB The Show. I do purchase that game almost every year. But for me, NCAA football.
That is number 2 on my list. Yeah.
It was everything. My mom would get so sick of hearing all of the fight songs that they would use as the soundtrack. Because, Madden, you'd get like the cool songs and stuff. No, NCAA football, you just get the fight songs of all the different universities. So that's all you get. So she'd be in the kitchen. Oh, dang it. But I was such a nerd. This is how I knew I was meant to be involved in like fantasy sports in one way or another. Even as a kid, I'm talking 10, 11, 12 years old. Even as a kid, what I would do now, GoldenEye was fantastic. That is very true, Frank or Owen. But what I would do is I would recruit from a terrible school, and I wouldn't play the games. I would just recruit, simulate the games, and then recruit again, and simulate the games and recruit again, because I wanted to know how good of a team I could build without me dominating, because I probably had it on like super easy or whatever it was. Like, and without me dominating the other team, how good I could build a team just from that standpoint. I'm doing that as like an 11-year-old kid. Probably weird.
It's not weird. No, I've never done the just recruiting part.
Just recruiting.
Yeah, and on top of that, when I was in Texas and it was the middle of the pandemic, you're bored, right?
Right.
And I don't know if you saw this, but around that time, Big Cat from Barstool had gotten a copy of NCAA 14, which is the last one they made.
Yep. With Shoelace on the cover, Denard Robinson.
With Shoelace, yeah. And he started doing the creative coach, and he became an offensive coordinator, and he would live stream himself doing it. And it was fun. It was this whole thing. I went out, I bought an old 360 for like $100.
Did you really?
Yeah. And on top of that, Big Cat had made this game so insanely popular again that I dropped $120 on a disc copy.
No, you didn't.
Of NCAA 14. It's a middle pandemic. I'm not doing anything else.
Right. That's true. What else are you going to spend your money on?
Yeah, dropped $120. It's been a little while since I played it, but my younger brother, he's been playing it in the living room. The last time I played it, my coach, legend Toby Tonka, three-time college football champion, took the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors to the title, and then took the head coaching job at Houston, back-to-back national champions, 3-time straight champion. Let's go.
Love it.
On the hardest game mode, on Heisman mode.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the cheat? I always did this. I always did the cheat where I would create a player, and I would create him as like a kicker or a punter, and I would make his kicking terrible awful. Like the worst kicker in the game. So he would be a 1-star recruit. However, I made his speed 99, his strength 99, like everything else. And I would draft or recruit him as a kicker and then change positions to a running back. And then he would just dominate.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's good. Never did that.
Yeah.
I do remember I did one thing similar to that because I was curious what would happen if this dude got hurt all the time. So I made him super buffed up, like 99 all the way through. And then he gets to injury, 99. So this dude's getting hurt on every single play.
Oh my gosh.
The most chaotic thing I've ever seen in my life.
Don't touch him, don't touch him, don't touch him, don't touch him.
Yeah, don't touch him, just let him run free. Let him be free.
That's just too much stress.
I love it.
I have enough stress in my life. That's just too much stress for me.
The things you do when you're a child, man. When you just, it's just you in the game and you're lost in it. I love it.
Love it. All right. I think we kind of ran out of time to talk more about the Isaiah Likely-O-meter. Maybe we could do one or two more.
I'll do one or two more.
Yeah, we'll do one or two more here real quick. All right. Let's go back to the quarterback position. And it's a guy that's not even playing yet. But Likely-O-meter that Caleb Williams and Drake Maye are quarterback ones for fantasy as rookies. Both guys as rookies. We see CJ Stroud doing it this year. Anthony Richardson was clearly on pace to do it. He was one of the top guys. Bryce Young, not so much. But what are the odds? What would you say on the Likely-O-meter for Drake Maye and Caleb Williams in their first year?
Okay. Thinking about who has the top overall picks so far.
Yep, 1 to 10, Josh.
I know Chicago is there. New England's there. The Giants are there. Oh, man. Both of them are QB1s.
Both of them. So top 12 guys for fantasy in their rookie season.
I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I'll be nice about it. I'll give him a little bit because we can quarterback can be
quarter points.
So I'm going to pay 1.25. I don't think this happens because here's the thing. Bryce Young went to a very, very bad Panthers team. CJ Stroud lucked out and not only went to a team that was on the rebuild, but had the massive culture change that it really, really needed.
Yeah.
He absolutely lucked out in that situation. So I pulled up Tankathon. God bless Tankathon. To see who has the top picks in the draft. Chicago, Arizona right now are 1 and 2. If William goes to Chicago, it's not going to work out. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I will say this. I think if for whatever reason the Cardinals decide to move on from Kyler Murray, I think Williams has a really good shot of actually being pretty decent in Arizona. I don't know about QB1 guy,
sure,
but definitely a QB2 guy.
Sure.
That means Maye is going to either Chicago or New England. Don't think Chicago's really that much of an option for QB1. And New England, I don't know if when Tom Brady was there that Belichick's like, I don't need to ever hire a good offensive coordinator to the point where he just forgot how to hire a good offensive coordinator.
Maybe.
Because Bill O'Brien sucks. Matt Patricia was doing it for a minute. And Josh McDaniels, he's not a good head coach. I don't even think he was that good of a coordinator because Tom Brady just did everything.
Yeah.
So
if we see that sometimes, Adam Gase was the same type of thing with Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Where
he
was a terrible coach, but people thought he was great because, he's Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator. No, you don't need an offensive coordinator when you have one built in at quarterback.
And look at Nathaniel Hackett over there in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
The only one that I think is proving it wrong is Eric Bieniemy because he's having Sam Howell lead the league in passing somehow.
It's true.
So I will give him that. But No, it's just not going to 1.25. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I had a pretty low number as well. I had 2.75. I think what helps is both of these guys are athletic quarterbacks. And we saw like Justin Fields rookie year. We saw what was happening with Anthony Richardson this year. On bad teams, if you're a good athlete, these guys could run for 800, 900, 1,000 yards. And while that isn't necessarily good for their football team, for fantasy football, that's great. I love it. So while I think it is highly unlikely, I'll give it a slightly better odds just because both, I think Caleb Williams is obviously a fantastic athlete, but Drake Maye can get it done with his legs in his own right. Had an 800-yard rushing season in college. So, yeah, I don't think it happens, but I'm saying there's a chance.
Okay.
I'm saying there's a chance.
I don't like any of those options at the top of the draft board this year. They're pretty bad.
It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. All right. Last one here. Saquon Barkley.
Ooh.
Odds that Saquon Barkley is ever a running back one again. We have not seen many running back one seasons from Saquon Barkley. He's getting a little bit older, in a tough situation with New York, could go to a new team. What are the odds that we ever see him as a running back one again?
Now, I just want to clarify. We're talking about running back one, top 12, not the number one running back.
Correct. Top 12. Because I think one overall is almost zero.
If he stays in New York, 0. If he gets out of New York, and I mean the Giants and the Jets, if he gets out of New York, I will say 7. Just because I want to say 8, but his health scares me, so I'll say 7. The Giants do not and cannot put together a decent O-line to save their life. They are awful at the O-line spot. Now, you can have a great running back, an amazing running back, but if your offensive line is absolute garbage, it's not going to do anything. There's only been one exception to that rule that I can think of off the top of my head.
Barry?
It's Barry. And we haven't seen that before where the line was bad and this dude was just evading everybody still. And we haven't seen it since. Maybe to an extent, Adrian Peterson a little bit.
Oh, fair.
But it's been mostly Barry. And that dude proved that he was literally a once-in-a-lifetime player. Because that dude, if I did what he did, I wouldn't have knees at all. Like, I would have ripped my ACL 20 times in my career.
Absolutely.
I would have been that 99 overall injury player. Okay? I would have been that guy. There's just, with Saquon, he's a great talent. Can he stay healthy as number one? But number two, he has to get out of New York to be a top, a number one rushing option.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go a tiny bit lower, but I still think he's got one more in him. He's going to be 27 next year. So he's getting up there in years at the running back position. 27 is not a spring chicken, but he is a freak of nature. If he can get with the right landing spot and stay healthy, those are the big things. So I'm factoring that into this number. So halfbacks, I can give half points. I'm going to give a 7.5. I think he's got one more in him, one more run, but we'll see. All right, let's go to break. When we get back, we will talk about your trades. That's right. It is getting towards the playoff time. Some leagues trade windows already closed. Others, we've got some time left up until the playoffs. Some, you can even trade in the playoffs. Kind of crazy, but there's a lot of leagues that do it these days. So we'll go to break, and we'll do that when we come back.
From the Hometown Hero series, Zach Parise.
That is a very nice card, and that's one I'm probably going to have to organize a little trade ski with you, because I would actually like that card.
You got downtown Newark in the background. I mean, Newark has never looked so good.
No, it is not.
We'll put that back up on the screen. I just want to have a penny sleeve ready, and yes, we can absolutely work out a little trade ski for that, because that belongs in a Devil fans collection right there.
I'll trade you the Braden Schneider rookie card for it.
Done.
There we go. The first card for card trade on Rip and Riff history. And it was that easy.
It was that easy. That's because, you know what? Because neither one of us are jerks. And it's the same thing when we try and do fantasy trades. Like, we don't try and screw each other. We have conversations. If there's a fit, there's a fit. If it's not, it's not. We don't try and, like, take the other one over the barrel. So there you go. In a penny sleeve. Hometown hero, Zach Parise. He was among the league's most productive goal scorers in 06-07 and followed up with a terrific regular season with an even more impressive postseason. And then I talk about what he did in the first round series against Tampa Bay that year. So that's off to the side for you.
That's true. And, if this is it for his career, he had a hell of a career.
He did.
Hopefully he comes back one more year with the Islanders. But if he doesn't, hell of a run.
Welcome back. Thanks so much to Heavy T for joining me. He was talking about how much fun he had doing that. I had a blast. It's a fun little game. We like to play it on the Dynasty Nerds podcast from time to time. So I thought, you know what? Let's bring it over here. To the Dynasty show here on BSN. So let's get to some of these trades. But first, let me address my guy Cam Young here. He said, I spent 100 hours watching Dynasty shows and missed the playoffs in 3 out of 3 leagues. Send help. Cam, I am so sorry, my man. That is a tough break. And you know what? Sometimes that's just how it happens, especially if you are in a situation where you're like, yeah, I had Mark Andrews and I had Aaron Rodgers and I had J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb and Justin Jefferson, like great team. They all got hurt. And that's some people's teams. That really happened to some people where they lost 4 or 5 key players to season-long or multiple week injuries throughout the season. And you can only have so much depth when you have stars like that on your team. So, Cam, I am sorry. Hopefully next year goes a little bit better for you. Sometimes it's just how the cookie crumbles. Make sure to get all your trade questions in. We had one pretty early here. Office Depot was in here, said Superflex traded the guaranteed 2024 101 in exchange for 2 2024 seconds, 2 2024 thirds, a 2024 fourth, and AOC, which is Aiden O'Connell. Sir, that is robbery. That is robbery. To be able to get the not just a first, but the number 1 overall pick and not have to give a first back at all, that like you should be in jail for that. That should not be allowed under any circumstances. A 101 guaranteed. So you have your choice now of one of the stud quarterbacks like Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, or the greatest wide receiver we've seen in a while in Marvin Harrison Jr. for a bunch of seconds, thirds, and fourths. Whew. I mean, congratulations. Congratulations. That's it's impressive. All right. Let's see. Marcus said, I gave up a late 24 first for Nico Collins a few weeks back. How are we feeling? We're feeling great. We're feeling great about that. I think that's a very fair trade, but one that benefits you. Let's look like this season so far. And it's the rookie campaign, and obviously things can change, go haywire, whatever. But in the rookie campaign for Caleb Williams, Nico Collins is wide receiver 17 on the season. And that's overall. Points per game wise, he's even higher because he's already had his bye and he did miss 1 game due to injury. So he's averaging 16 points per game. That's ahead of guys like Jordan Addison, who's at 15 at 13.7, 14.5 for Devontae Adams, even slightly ahead of Michael Pittman Jr. with 15.9. So he's a fringe wide receiver 1 who is only in his 3rd season. What is he, 24? Yeah, 24 years old. So to get a young receiver, what are you hoping for? You know what I mean? if you make that pick and you draft a late wide receiver, a wide receiver late in the first round this year, would you be happy if he turned into Nico Collins? I think 99% of us would say yes. That's what we're hoping for. We're hoping for a prototypical X-size receiver paired with a young quarterback that has shown that he can put up legitimate top-tier numbers. When I say top tier, I'm not meaning like Justin Jefferson and like that tier, but he can be a fringe wide receiver one for fantasy football. He's shown it. So giving up a late first, love it. Would do it all day and twice on Sunday. All right, let's see. I scrolled kind of up and down a lot. I don't think I've seen as many trades in here tonight. Dennis Bennett, who will be joining us in a little bit here, said Tyler's producing the show from his mom's basement. Are you going to allow him to say things like that, Tyler? You going to let him talk trash? It sounds like some fighting words. Ben Heavy T said he's like he's half right. I'm guessing. So the bedroom at your mom's house, basically. I'm guessing that's what he means. He said correct. Yeah, there you go. I was saying it looked like a bedroom, not a basement. But still, we can't let him talk about you like that, Tyler. Can't allow it. Ben was asking earlier about the 2025 and 2026 class, saying that he went all in this year and he has no picks. But he does have A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Ja'Marr Chase. Those are pretty freaking good wide receivers. So he's looking great at wide receiver, hoping to get some running backs in these next couple of years. Like I said, I don't know much about 2026 right now. We haven't had a ton of freshmen really ball out right away in their first year. But there are some interesting names in 2025 that, Dennis Martinez and Nick Singleton. So there are some names that are of interest in that class. And we'll see who declares this year. Obviously, Braylon Allen, he was the first one to kind of declare this year. So Marcus said, I gave up Jacoby Myers and a second for Mike Evans a few weeks back. Yeah, man. Marcus, you're making some good moves. Making some good moves. Mike Evans, he's always the guy that's discounted. He's been considered an old receiver for like 5 years now. And he just continues to produce every year, continues to produce. Doesn't really matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Jameis Winston, whether it's Tom Brady, whether it's Baker Mayfield. He just continues to produce. He gets open, and he's one of those guys that receivers will say it, but it's not always true. But with Mike Evans, it's true. He's always open. Like Mike Evans is always open. He's not a guy that creates a ton of separation, but he's always open. Just throw it to him, and he'll figure out a way to catch the football. So on a contending team, love doing that move. All right. Greg's in the house. He said, currently fourth, need an extra wide receiver. He said, I have JJ. I traded a 24th third for Cooks. Is that okay or a panic? I think that's okay. Look, is Brandon Cooks a game changer? No. But really, you need him for 1 week because JJ is coming back week 14. You need him for 1 week. That offense is humming. I mean, Dak Prescott literally is the quarterback one since week 7 or week 6, something like that. He's been the best quarterback in fantasy football since that point. So he's been absolutely fantastic the second half of the year. He's throwing 3 and 4 touchdowns a game, and Brandon Cooks can always be a recipient of one of those. So, and we're going to find out tomorrow night. We'll see it again. They got the Seahawks. I think the Cowboys win that one pretty handedly. I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for them. So, yeah, I love that move. And I'm never going to be upset about giving a third. Never. Are there times where you might try to sneak in and get a third here and there? Yeah. If there's a player you like, go get him. That's totally fine. But if we crunch the numbers, a vast majority of the time, that third is going to be nothing. You're going to draft a guy that's going to sit on your bench for 2 years and then you cut him. Like a vast majority of the time, that's what happens with 3rd-round picks. Every once in a while, you get one that sticks and hits, and you're thrilled when you do. But for the most part, it's not working out. So anytime that you can move a third for a player that is going to help you do whatever you need to do in that moment, always worth it for me. Always worth it. All right. Greg also said, gave up 324 first for Herbert. Do you think that was too much? Greg, I'd want to know where those firsts are. Because if for the most part they're mid to late, definitely give me Justin Herbert. But if one or two of those are going to be early, and I have a chance at Drake Maye, I have a chance at Caleb Williams, and I also gave up a bunch of picks on top of it, then I don't love it as much. So I would need a little more context for that one, Greg. Marcus, do I start Jalen Hurts versus San Francisco or Dak versus Seattle? It is very tempting to want to continue to start Jalen Hurts because he's just been so consistently good this season. But that San Francisco defense is pretty legitimate. I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has been as hot as anybody else right now. The Seahawks team is fine, but they're not. I mean, you saw how they played against San Francisco last week. They're not stopping anybody. And with the way that offense is playing right now, I'm going to stick with Dak Prescott. I think he's going to have a good week. I get it. It's Thursday night. Those games are a little more iffy, but I'm sticking with Dak in this scenario. Owen said, is DJ Dallas going to get any touches? Man, I hope so. I do love that kid. I still have the jersey right there. The way the camera angle is, you can't really see it as much, but I love DJ Dallas. He's a great kid. He's a hard worker. Love talking with him. And he'll get some touches. He'll get some touches this week. I don't know that he'll get a lot, but he'll get some with Kenneth Walker out again. It's going to be mostly the Zach Charbonnet show, but he does all the things that you need him to do. Man, I apologize. I must be getting tired. I woke up a little earlier this morning than normal, and I'm just keep yawning like crazy. So I hope he gets some touches. Might be, I don't think he's going to get enough where you consider like flexing him, but I think he'll get the ball a little bit this week. Greg did say it was 2 mids and his, which is a late first. So in that case, yes, I'm willing to do that to get a Justin Herbert. Jacob Parker says, I joined an orphaned team with the idea to rebuild, and I gained 24 firsts on top of mine through trades. My team outperformed, and it's not looking likely that I'll have a top 3 pick. What should I do? You have a few options here. It is always tough when your team does better, but not good enough to make the playoffs. Because if they make the playoffs, they're like, oh, cool. I got a chance to win the ship off an orphan team. That's amazing. But I'm not moving any of these yet because the picks are only going to gain value as we get closer and closer. But I'm going to kind of wait and see where these land exactly. And then I'm going to see, okay, where am I at on Caleb? Where am I at on Drake Maye? Where am I at on all these guys? And is it worth it to trade, pick 6, 7, and 9 to try to get up to the top spot? Or with a class that's a little bit deeper at quarterback this year, will a Michael Penix Jr. be there for me? Will a Bo Nix be there for me? And how do I feel about those guys? So all hope is not lost. And also there's a lot of good receivers in this class. So it might give you an opportunity to take some of those guys as well. Just Josh says, I may have messed up. I gave up Tajay and a 25-second for Josh. Oh, no. Oh, no. You gave up Tajay Spears in a second for Dobbs. Oh, my heart. I get it. When you're desperate and you need a spot start and he's been playing well, I get it. But that one hurts. That one cuts deep because you know my feelings on my boy Tajay. and the second. Like either one of those things was probably too much, but both. Man, that's a tough one. We've all been there. We've all been there. I made a trade where I thought it was going to be a late first this year, and it was for a contending team. And I traded a first for Matthew Stafford and Darren Waller. Waller obviously has been hurt most of the season. Stafford's been meh. And that first now is leaning more toward the high end, where it's probably going to be pick 4, pick 5. So we've all been there. We've all made trades that, looking back, we're like, that was stupid. Why did I do that? But yeah, that one does hurt. Marcus says, I'm an Eagles fan, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I have confidence in the Birds, but fantasy football, you said what I was thinking. Yeah, look, Jalen Hurts is awesome, but that defense is going to limit him a little bit. And Dak is just, he's really good. He's really good, and it's a easier matchup. And I know as a Cowboys or as an Eagles fan, it's probably tough to start a Cowboy, but at the end of the day, you got to close your eyes sometime, and you just got to get the points. And I think, for my rankings, I do have Dak Prescott 2 spots ahead of Jalen Hurts this coming week. Cody B, he agrees. He's saying Dak Prescott as well. But he said, I just traded Jordan Love for Olave in Dynasty. It's a 2-quarterback league. My only quarterbacks are Dak and Pat. 6-6 and need a win. Questionable players and receivers on bye. Pick 2. London, Godwin, or Singletary. Let me get my rankings up for this week, because I can tell you what I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I want to make sure that I'm taking everything into consideration. All right. So right now, overall, I have Marcus says fantasy football is fantasy football. I was trying to get a trade for CD and traded for Ferguson. He's here to win. I respect that. Because there are some people that are like, nope, I'm not touching guys on rival teams. And I understand it. But at the end of the day, you are just trying to get points. That's what you're trying to do. All right. So let's look at everybody here. So off the top of my head, I am leaning towards, make sure I find them all here real quick. London, Godwin, Singletary. So Singletary going up against Denver. I don't mind that matchup at all. We did see Pierce back, but Pierce hasn't been used as much. So I do like Singletary in that matchup. So I'm definitely going to go with Singletary. It's a little trickier between the wide receivers. Chris Godwin, they do get Carolina this week. Carolina, typically you tend to run the ball in Carolina, but they're not a great running team, and it's a must-win situation. Drake London, they get the New York Jets. So he's probably getting Sauce Gardner. So give me Godwin and Singletary this week. All right, Jacob Parker says, on the picks I traded for, looks like it'll be a top 4 at least. I'll definitely weigh my options close to the draft. My dream would be to draft Caleb or Drake and Marvin Harrison Jr. in that league. Yeah, that's the dream, man. To be able to get multiple of those players, get one of those quarterbacks and Marvin Harrison Jr., like that is the absolute dream. Totally with you. If you could make trades to get up there and get those players, awesome. But you're going to have to pay a pretty penny, because right now, most people are valuing Marvin Harrison Jr. as, at worst, already a top 10 receiver before even being drafted. And those quarterbacks, people get pretty desperate for quarterbacks. And I think you said it's a 2-quarterback league. So people are going to be thirsty for those. But if you can make it work, I think they're talented enough players that I'm willing to slightly overpay to get those guys. But we'll see if your league mates even allow it, because they probably have their heart set on Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake Maye and those guys. Marcus said, I'm an IDP, and I was trying to get Micah. Look, hey, at the end of the day, points are points, baby. Points are points. All right, let's go to our final break. When we come back, we'll be with Mr. Dennis Bennett after his Sirius satellite interview. We'll have to ask him how that goes here on the Better Sports Network.
The Bears have to be one of the most inept franchises of any sport I've ever seen in my entire life. And they share the city with the White Sox, who are also inept. Like, that is how bad the Bears are. I just don't understand how you can go your entire existence and the quarterback that wins you a Super Bowl is Jim McMahon. You couldn't find anybody else.
They don't have a good history with quarterbacks, and they let him be the quarterback for a long time too.
Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes right there. And you drafted Mitch Trubisky. They were right there. I there's a lot of pain in being a Falcons fan. The Bears are one of the teams I could argue they might have it worse, and they have a Super Bowl. And when the best quarterback in the past 50 years is Jay Cutler, you have a problem.
That's so funny that you just said that. We were talking about Jay Cutler the other day, me and my friend, and I was like, yeah, he was on, because we were watching the Colorado Rockies game against the Giants, and it looked like he was behind the thing. I was, yeah, well, he played for Denver most of his career. We looked it up. Chicago let him be their starting quarterback way too long.
Here's the thing, too, is that Jay Cutler wasn't bad. Like, he was erratic. He wasn't terrible, though.
The poor man's Brett Favre.
I'm taking him over Justin Fields. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would.
But Jay Cutler led that team to an NFC title game that they lost to Green Bay. But he's gotten farther than anybody else. You want to know who the other starting quarterback was for the Bears in the other Super Bowl appearance they made? It was Rex Grossman. What are we doing out here? It was Rex Grossman, and Kyle Orton was the backup. How are you that bad? Bro, like, oh my God. Listen to the top 5. According to Football Reference, the top 5 greatest Bears quarterbacks of all time. Jay Cutler, number 1.
I can't believe it.
Sid Luckman, who last played in 1950, is number 2. Jim Harbaugh is number 3. Jim McMahon, the Super Bowl winner, is number 4, and he played there for 6 years. And Mitch Trubisky, is number 5 on the list as terms of passing yard go.
All right, welcome back. Dennis will be joining us momentarily. He's still probably, he's getting us 15 minutes of fame. He's a big shot. He's a big deal. So he'll be joining us as soon as he is able to. But we do have another question here. Marcus asks, do you think your guy Spears has a good day against Indy? He was dealing with a little bit of an injury. So it's always tricky to know how much usage he's going to get with dealing with an injury. And he's had some very good games this year. But he's yet to have that like marquee game. Could he break out and have that type of game this week? Sure. He absolutely could. Absolutely could. But Indy's actually got a decent run defense. They're not great, but they're a decent run defense. So if he does it, I think it's going to be in the passing game. We'll have to wait and see. So I would say if I'm, desperate because of all of the guys on bye and things like that, and I need to throw him in, yeah, he's got just as good of a shot to break off a long one off of a pass or sneak in the end zone or something like that. Like, he's just got just as good of a shot as almost anybody. But he's not somebody that I'm prioritizing getting in my lineup. It's more like, I'm missing, a couple different guys due to injury and a couple guys due to bye week, and I need someone to fill this flex spot. Tyjae Spears can do that, and I think he can get you 7-8 points, and you'll feel pretty good about it. So I like him, but I don't love him this week. Cody B said, would you trade a next year second for Christian Kirk? Christian Kirk's an interesting one for me. I've never been the biggest Christian Kirk guy, but overall, he is a producer. He's a guy that's produced fairly well the past couple years. A little bit inconsistent this year, but he is currently wide receiver 23 in PPR leagues. And if you can get a wide receiver, I mean, technically he's a wide receiver 2 at the moment, but a guy that's a wide receiver 3 for a second round pick, especially if it's not like 201, 202, I think it's more than worth it. It's just a good depth piece that you can play on bye weeks. You can play on injuries. Like I said, I don't know that I'm prioritizing him necessarily, but he's averaging 13 points a game, and you can do a lot worse with a second round pick. Second round pick hit rates, especially lower ones, it's pretty sketch. He said, "Do you think that Ridley is back next year?" I don't know. He this is his last year of his deal. He's just a 1-year deal that he was with the Jaguars. I think what I will say is, if it's not Ridley, it's because they brought in T. Higgins or somebody like that to pair with Trevor Lawrence. And T. Higgins makes a lot of sense because him and Lawrence played together in college. So that's something that I could see them doing, somebody like that, bringing in if they don't bring Ridley back. So either way, I think Kirk is going to be the wide receiver 2 on this team, no matter how it all shakes out. Jacob says, how close do you think Kincaid is to Bowers? They're a little bit different. So, or Laporta. They're a little bit different in play style. I think he's closer to Laporta in play style than he is Kincaid, where he's a guy that can make things after the catch, but he's not as good of a blocker as Laporta, but he can go up and high point the ball too. Like, I think Bowers right now, I would rank behind those two only because we know the landing spot in the situation and we know it's a good one for them. So I would have them over Bowers. Now, as a prospect, I would rank Bowers slightly above those guys. So it depends on what you're looking for. Like, if you're looking to make a straight up trade, I would rather Laporta or Kincaid, because so much of that does depend on the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, how much they like to check down, how much they manufacture touches in the receiving game, things like that. So I would value Bowers third at the moment, but as a prospect, I think as a raw prospect, I would have had him above those guys. All right. While we're waiting for Dennis, Tyler. Oh, actually, Dennis is here. Come on, buddy.
What's going on, man?
How was Sirius Satellite?
It was fantastic. I was just chatting with Greg Ambrosius and Tom Kesnick on the High Stakes Fantasy Advantage, talking a little bit of Dynasty, because they're transitioning out of redraft into Dynasty. So, been on that show a few times.
What was the best question they asked you?
Who's an under the radar guy that I'm looking to get in Dynasty right now?
Who'd you say?
Because it feels like we're 12 weeks into the season, and not a lot of guys are under the radar. And I often have to take off my Dynasty Nerds glasses that, like, guys that we're looking at all the time are under the radar for a lot of people.
True.
But I went with Josh Downs and Cedric Tillman. Like, I think Downs, he's earned targets. He's played better. I thought that Alec Pierce would be a great match with Anthony Richardson, and it just didn't work out. And Downs went in there and was earning targets from Richardson. He's earning targets from Gardner Minshew. And I think he establishes himself as the wide receiver too in Indianapolis. With Tillman, they shipped off Donovan Peoples-Jones. Amari Cooper's 30 now. Injured again last week. I think Tillman is a guy that we're going to see the next few weeks. If you're going to buy him, this might be the week to buy him, to be honest. Get him before he goes off.
No, I think that's a great call. I loved his tape. I thought he was a great playmaker for Tennessee there. And I really like him. So I think that's a good call. He is a good under the radar guy. So Dennis, you ready to play a little pick your poison? I'll give you 2 players. You tell me which one you'd rather have on your dynasty team and why.
How many caveats do I get to add?
As many as you want. I mean, you're the star of the show. As many as you want, my man. All right, let's start at the quarterback position. All right. Would you rather have the current number 6 quarterback, Lamar Jackson, for your dynasty team, or the number 7 current quarterback, CJ Stroud? Who would you rather have on your dynasty team?
So this one tugs closely at my heart as an Ohio State fan.
Yeah.
I like Lamar Jackson's talent, but we've seen CJ Stroud showing escapability. He runs a little bit, but I mean, he's showing real good escapability in the pocket and looking downfield. And he's 21, 22, Lamar's 27, 28.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lamar's still got a long runway. And I think it takes an extreme leap of faith to think that this might not be CJ Stroud's best year. I mean, this could be his best season. And, we have to kind of see, but he feels like he's in a great situation with DeMeco Ryans. The team believes in him. If the stories are true about him saying, I want Tank Dell, and them going and getting Tank Dell, that means that they're on the same page, that
it's true.
They trust each other. And that's what, that's like Belichick and Brady. That's, these long-term coaching quarterback relationships. That's how those things are built. Lamar, though, I think, he's on pace for his best passing season. He's been completing 70% of his passes. He's still a dynamic runner.
Yeah.
I think it's really every bit as close as 7 and 8. And I think I'm still going to take Lamar this year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's so close. And maybe I'm overcorrecting for my Ohio State bias. But man, Lamar's playing really good. We know what his ceiling is. His ceiling's 36 touchdowns and 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've absolutely seen it. I agree. It is a tricky one. I do worry about how much longer is Lamar going to be an elite dual threat quarterback, because if he gets to the point where we kind of started seeing Cam Newton get to, and Russell Wilson, and this does happen with a lot of running quarterbacks where they get to a point where it's like they're still good at it, but they're not a game changer anymore. How many years left of being a game-changing runner does Lamar have? And that's what I don't know. And when CJ Stroud, just on his arm alone, can already put up almost identical numbers, and in fact, I think he's actually points per game, he's actually ahead of Lamar at 20.6, and Lamar's at 18.9. Lamar just hasn't had his bye yet, which I believe happens this week. So he's already outproducing him as a rookie. And I get it. Everything has fallen perfectly for CJ Stroud. You couldn't have scripted a better rookie season for a guy. So is there some regression that's probably coming? Probably so, but he's so freaking good.
Yeah. I'm
going to take CJ Stroud.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all.
It's a tough one. All right. Let's go over to the running back position now. We'll do a few of these ones here. I wanted to get one guy in here that is a pretty hot name at the moment. Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams comes off injury and was like, all right, we'll see how this goes. Nope. Just right back to full workload, 200 total yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked absolutely fantastic. So would you, on your dynasty team, rather have Kyren Williams, or would you rather have the current number 8 running back on the season, DeAndre Swift?
So, Swift is built a little bit better BMI wise. Mm-hmm. My contention with Williams has always been look, he looks great, but he's gonna break. So ride him until he breaks. So if you accept the fact that when he breaks, it could be a couple weeks, it could be half a season, it could be a year, but at 199 pounds and 5'10", he's likely to break, and you're okay with it. I think you got to take Williams because he's just so much more consistent. I love DeAndre Swift, and everything he's doing is in Philly except getting goal line work kind of is what we had hoped for him. He's DeAndre Swift in 7 or 8 years when he's out of the league, there's going to be a support group of guys sitting around talking about what DeAndre Swift could have been for fantasy if he hadn't been in Detroit and if he hadn't played with Jalen Hurts. And, it's just, because he could have been, if he had went to Kansas City like he was supposed to, instead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
could have been a very different story.
That was the guy that was like Brian Westbrook, but better.
Yeah. You know what's really funny? We've mentioned it a lot with the TJ Hawkinson Laporta thing, but they did the exact same thing with Swift and Gibbs. Like another guy that's a speedy guy, that a little bit undersized, profiles more as a third down guy, but can do it between the tackles too. Like they basically took two players that they already had on their team and replaced them and traded them away with rookies. Now, from a finance standpoint, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But from a, draft assets standpoint, maybe not as much. You could have used that on some other picks there. But I had a hard time with this one as I was putting it together. I think both of these players are still young enough. DeAndre Swift's in his 4th season, Kyren Williams in his 2nd season. Both players can get it done in the receiving game and the running game. I did end up going with Kyren too. The only reason, if you would tell me 100% certain that DeAndre Swift is back in Philly next year, I probably would have taken Swift. But that uncertainty of, well, what if he ends up in a terrible committee somewhere else, was enough to put Kyren Williams ahead for me. But it was really, really close between those two guys. All right, let's do another running back one here. We've got a lot of interesting names that have performed this year, but I think one of the biggest surprises has been Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson towards the tippy top of the fantasy football rankings. So would you rather have for your fantasy football teams Brian Robinson or a guy that profiles as almost his antithesis, complete opposite, in James Cook?
So I don't know if you've watched Brian Robinson the last 2 or 3 weeks, but he's been putting up like 8 or 9 targets, 6 or 7 receptions.
It's true.
He's, I don't know where Ron Rivera was keeping 3 down back Brian Robinson, but man, Eric Bieniemy cut him loose the last couple of weeks, and it's been something.
It's true.
I haven't been a huge James Cook guy. I think he's good, but I just don't know that he's ever going to get, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara target volume. And I there's nothing about his profile that says he's going to get, 150 or 175 or 200 carries. He's not going to push for a ton of carries. So I do struggle there. But Brian Robinson is, his profile was that of a Jag. Had to wait till he was, a 36-year-old, 5th-year senior. Now, there's also the argument that he was behind some good guys at Alabama. I get it. Alabama's put some good running backs in the NFL.
It's true.
And sometimes you just got to wait your turn. There's only one ball. But I don't think Robinson is a special talent. And I feel like Rivera is on the way out. I don't know that Bieniemy is going to be the successor. And so being a little bit unsure like what that team dynamic is going to be. That, and Sam Howell's probably going to throw the ball 700 times. And I feel like even if a new coach comes in, I feel like Howell is earning the opportunity because he's super tough. He's taken a beating and goes back out there and still slinging it. And so the offense could go through some changes there. I think the stability in Buffalo puts me over on the Cook side. I think Cook is going to have, a 12 to 15 touch role on an offense that I expect to be explosive going forward.
Yeah. It's another one that I went back and forth on. And you mentioned the thing that tipped the scales for me. What's going to happen with this team next year? Because I don't think Ron Rivera is the coach next year. I think they move on, and typically we see what happened with Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce, who had a good season as a rookie, everybody thought he was going to be the guy. Well, they brought in Devin Singletary.
Hashtag 2-3 year window.
That's what happens with some of these guys.
I had a person argue with me for 2 weeks about Dameon Pierce.
Who was?
I had some Florida/Houston fan.
Oh, okay.
Gators, Houston Texans fan argue with me for 2 weeks on Twitter about Dameon Pierce.
Interesting. So yeah, because of that uncertainty, I will take a guy that I don't think he's ever got the ceiling, but I think his floor is pretty safe in James Cook. So I'll take James Cook here. Let's touch on two guys that are slightly higher end than those guys. One's going to be pretty near and dear to your heart, Dennis. The aforementioned Jahmyr Gibbs. He's had a fantastic rookie campaign, but a guy that was a rookie last year and is still a very, very good running back in his own right, Breece Hall. Who would you rather have, Breece Hall or Jahmyr Gibbs?
It's easy to go Jahmyr Gibbs right now because the Lions are hot. They're playing well. And you'd think that given the dumpster fire the Jets are, that they would just be force-feeding Breece Hall the ball in any fashion they could when they're not force-feeding it to Garrett Wilson. But they don't know what they're doing there. Overall, I love Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm going Breece Hall here. I think he's just he does all of the things that Gibbs does. Maybe not quite as good a pass catcher, but a very good pass catcher. He's 25, 30 pounds bigger, can stand up. He's going to get more carries. He'll get higher volume. Once that team shakes loose of the Newt Rockne curse, and no, not Newt Rockne, Vince Lombardi curse of Aaron Rodgers put on him, it'll get rid of Nathaniel Hackett. That's
yeah. I ended up going with Breece Hall too, and it really was tempting to go with Gibbs because he's looked so freaking good in his opportunities. But Breece Hall has actually put up some pretty solid numbers as well, 13.7 points per game, and that's with literally no passing threat. Like they are stacking the box
right
consistently.
He's running against 9-man boxes.
Yeah, it's rough out there in these streets for Breece Hall. So once you get a guy like Rodgers in there, whoever they're going to have long term at quarterback, I think
we may have Rodgers back in 3 weeks.
They really might, which is hilarious. Aaron Rodgers is crazy. I love that dude. I know he's a very divisive player, but he cracks me up.
It's going to be shotgun one and throw it away or throw it to Garrett Wilson. That's he is,
which I'm good with. I'm good with that. Throw it to Garrett Wilson all day. There we go. Yeah. So I went with Breece Hall as well. Let's move on to the wide receiver position here, and let's go with some guys that aren't spring chickens anymore. Keenan Allen, Mike Evans. Who would you rather have between those two this season? Keenan Allen currently the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football. Mike Evans a little bit lower, but Mr. Consistency. Mike Evans, he's at 9 this year.
So, given the nature of how they play the game, I don't know that I should have to choose. You've got a big outside receiver, intermediate, contested. Like, he literally is just bigger, older Mike Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Keenan, I don't know about bigger.
Keenan is just slower, older, Chris Godwin. I mean, they're a perfect match on the same team.
That's true. That's true. I see where you're going with this.
So my struggle is that I think I'm going to go Keenan because I feel like the volume has a higher floor. Evans is going to be the guy that gets you bigger yardage, more touchdown. He'll have more splashy plays. But also we've seen, Evans is in his 10th year and he's 6'5", 230 pounds. And those guys, when they hit the cliff is big and it comes fast.
Sure.
Now he's playing like he's 25 right now. He's having a phenomenal year. And Keenan is playing great also. But I think Keenan, because of the nature of his game, might have a little more run left in his career. And so I'm going to give Keenan the edge by a nose.
Yeah, we disagreed on the first one, but we've been in lockstep ever since. I went with Keenan Allen as well. I think you also factoring in Justin Herbert at quarterback, and right now they don't have anyone else to throw to. And for some of these guys, I'm looking at it more long term, but for these guys, it's more about this year. Like, what can they do for me the rest of this year? And that's really what I care about more. Well, let's go from some of the oldest guys that are producing to some of the youngest ones. Two fantastic rookie receivers this year. One is currently 14th, and one is currently 15th in points per game. Tank Dell or Jordan Addison?
So I'd love to take the big guy, but there isn't one. In
there wasn't one. I didn't. I mean, I can give you Quentin Johnston if you want him, but
can you throw him in? I mean, that's really all he is right now. So it's really like, I love what Dell is doing. I feel like he is locked in with a quarterback for at least the next 4 years. He wasn't a first round pick, so his contract's only 4 years.
Right.
And I don't think that Dell will be the team's wide receiver one. I think there's always going to be a more alpha type receiver. I don't know if it's Nico Collins. I don't know if Xavier Hutchinson comes on and takes that role. I don't know if they draft one next year and a great draft of big wide receivers. Whereas Addison, he's playing with Justin Jefferson, and he's never going to be the one with Jefferson there. But they're getting ready to go through a quarterback change. They've got a first-year head coach this year. So that team is in transition a little more. I do feel that Addison probably has a little more ability to be the wide receiver one, kind of in the Antonio Brown mold, the 5'10", 185-pound guy that just gets open and has fantastic ball skills. Tank is like that too, but he's just 5'8" and 165. As much as I'd love to go Tank Dell because he's tied to CJ Stroud, I think I'm going to give just a razor thin edge to Jordan Addison.
You did find a way, and even the battle of the small guys, to still pick the bigger guy, which is impressive.
I got to tell you.
I had a really hard time with this one. Really, really hard time with this one. And even on the Dynasty Nerds podcast yesterday, I was, when I was listing guys, and I was like, yeah, I think I'd probably put Jordan Addison. The more I thought about it, I'm like, no, I'm going Tank Dell. Everything I've seen, he figures out ways to get open. The dude's name is Tank. At 5'8", to have the audacity to be named Tank is just pretty impressive.
It's like me going by Slim.
Right. It's like, and like me, smart. It's just, it doesn't make sense, but it works. So I ended up going with Tank Dell just by a hair. I do love the relationship that he gets to keep with CJ Stroud. That is pretty nice. And we really don't know how things are going to pan out with Minnesota. I think Kirk will end up being their quarterback next year. If not, I think he's in Atlanta. But if not, who do they get? Because they're not bad enough to be picking towards the top of the draft, but they're not good enough to like. I don't know. Maybe we see Matthew Stafford and O'Connell, reignite their passionate affair. I don't know, but we'll see.
Gonna take the bad back to the NFC North, huh?
That's right. All right. Let's get our last one out of here. And Dennis, I know you don't love young tight ends, but I'm gonna ask you.
Well, it depends on what environment I'm in.
Oh, okay. Trey McBride or Dalton Kincaid?
So McBride was the guy last year coming out. Like there was him and then everybody else in the tight end class.
Right.
And then they traded for Zach Ertz. And then when Zach Ertz got hurt this year, it's like McBride he's shown why he was the guy.
Right.
Dalton Kincaid, they flex him out a lot more. McBride is a little more traditional tight end. Kincaid is a little more receiver. I think Kincaid McBride is a guy you're going to see out there in a 11 personnel or 21 personnel versus Kincaid. You're going to see him a lot more in 12 personnel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're looking for fantasy points, and I think you got to go Kincaid.
I really went back and forth because I like both of these players quite a bit. I ended up going with McBride. I think that we are looking at the next great quarterback to tight end connection with McBride and Kyler Murray, because right now they don't.
You had me up until you said Kyler Murray.
I just don't think that they have that receiver that they're all bought in now. Now that could change if they end up drafting a Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously that changes the game. But as it is right now, they've got a bunch of small guys at receiver. We'll see if Hollywood Brown is back or not. Obviously him and Kyler were college teammates, so you have to think that might play a role in this somewhere, but it just feels like he has the opportunity to be the number one option in this offense, which many tight ends don't get that. And even Kincaid, as good as he is, he's going to be second fiddle for a while still to Stephon Diggs. And until something changes, that's how it's going to be there. So I'm going to take McBride by a hair. I don't feel great about it because even talking it through, I'm like, do I really like him more than Kincaid? It's close. It's really close, but I'll take McBride here. All right, Dennis. Well, that wraps things up for us, my man. Thank you for joining us. Anything you want to plug here real quick?
Well, I think we're fixing to fire up another mock draft for the rookies. This one will be 1 QB. Should be out probably next week. Look for Steve Pintado's The Script of Fantasy Success, breaking down every game of the week and the fantasy assets in it.
Awesome. And I just realized we're over time. I didn't even realize that. I was thinking 59, not 58. So we're over time. I apologize. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. Next week, last episode of Dynasty Nerds on BSN. We'll see you then.